All right, so I've got a problem. And this is a problem I have a lot because I like to do a lot of things myself, and many times it's the first time I'm doing it. So I can read as much as I want and use my past knowledge and understanding to kind of extrapolate how things should work. And, that usually works pretty well. But there's some things that I don't know what the right thing is, or maybe I do know what the right thing is, but I don't know how bad the worst case scenario is, if that makes any sense. So you should do things a certain way, but what happens if you don't? In woodworking, if you don't line up your grain, your piece can crack. So that's a common thing that woodworkers know that have a little bit of experience, have read a little bit. You should always line up your grain because it expands and contracts, and that rule is even broken in certain cases because it has to be for certain pieces of woodwork. So what I'm getting at here, and this is kind of a long-winded explanation, but it's something I wanted to kind of communicate and kind of kind of discuss a little bit about how bad is bad, how far do you have to go to get perfect, how wide is the happy range in the middle. So I'm doing my cylinder head here, and in a previous video, and I forgot the gentleman's name, but he mentioned, hey, why don't you spend an hour and lap the valves? Well, of course I'm going to do that. So I didn't mention it before maybe, but it was a plan of mine to at least lap them a little bit to clean up the surfaces. Honestly, they didn't look too bad, but I don't know, again, don't have any experience here, so I don't know what I'm looking at. I didn't see any huge pitting or anything, but what do I know, right? So I got to lapping them, and I'll show you some here. So I did a first pass on all of them, and it's hard to tell, but the intake valves all came out pretty uniform, and I had before I have like a kind of a shiny surface with a little bit of pitting, and after grinding them, I'm left with a kind of like a matte surface that goes all the way around the seat of the valve, and seems to me that that's what you want. So like I said, all the intake ones looking pretty good. Now remember, I didn't touch this side of the head at all. The welding was all on the exhaust side. So I started doing the exhaust, and I noticed right away that I'm not getting an even pattern. This is actually the best one. This is number 4. And surprise, surprise, I didn't do any welding here. It was just on the outside. Here's the third cylinder. And you might be able to see here, this part right here, all nice and uniform, and got kind of a smooth matte finish. Right here is pretty much untouched, and this is how it looked before I even lapped it. So tells me, oh yeah, you can kind of see now, getting contact all the way here and not making contact here. So this would tell me that I probably should get these valve seats ground at a machine shop, like actually surfaced so that I get the right angle, uniform, that the seats line up with them and that the valves go in. But I also feel like this is pretty close too. But again, judgment call. This truck's got 189,000 miles on it. What's my goal here? I really just want to get this truck running for like another year, half a year probably, because at that point maybe I'll be in a better situation to be able to buy a new vehicle, trade this in. So, definitely not going for performance here. I really just need to get this back on the road. So I don't know. Curious what you guys would do, what you think. there's a lot of talk on the internet. You can't always go by that. A lot of people like to talk in absolutes and, this is the only way you should do it because this is the best way. Will it work though? Will I get some more life out of this? I like to usually go back to empirical evidence, to diagnostic tests. I used to be a technician. I used to fix laser printers and all kinds of stuff. As a technician, you learn to rely on diagnostic tests. Sure, your knowledge and your experience and stuff helps you out, but do tests, see the result. If they pass, then you're good. So what I did here, I put the valves in, and I poured some denatured alcohol in here. Let's see down below here. Well, yeah, okay, so it is it is draining out for sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all wet. But now I'm back to, is it draining out fast enough to worry? Yeah, I just don't know. So I took the valves out and I can see they were leaking in all four of them, so the intake and the exhaust. And the intake, and especially this one, looked pretty good to me. But the fact that they leaked out of all four and that I'm calling these good by sight tells me that, maybe that would have leaked through eventually anyway, no matter how good the valves are, because, alcohol's thin, work its way down through if this isn't super polished. But I might as well show you, and this has been done before. There's enough videos on YouTube about lapping valves, but hey, I might as well show you what I'm doing here. Got a little cup of oil here, and I'm just lubricating the stem. And then I got these pipe cleaners to just kind of clean the guides a little bit, just, extra sure that there's no grit or anything in there that's going to wear down the valve. And I'm using the Permatex grinding compound, which I was really surprised. It's pretty gritty, like it's really coarse, it feels like, but it doesn't stay that way. It seems like it breaks down very quickly. So I'm just putting a light coating here. Pop this in. So this is a vacuum tube. Let's see, is this in? Yeah, you can see that. Yeah, just a piece of vacuum tube on, and I put a drill bit in here to put it on in the drill. And I'm not putting pressure from the face of the valve because I don't want my finger to kind of make it uneven, so I'm just pulling a little bit. Control battery's dead. This is what I'm doing. I don't know if this is right. It seems like maybe I'm doing too much grinding here with this stuff. The danger here is that you end up with like a rounded surface. Anytime you use sanding operations, it doesn't leave it completely flat. Machining leaves stuff more flat. When you sand, it tends to kind of round things over. So. I'm gonna reverse it. Don't ask me why, it just seems like the thing to do. Off. Surface. So it's the next morning, and last night I ended up watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos about valve grinding and saw a couple machine shops doing it with different kinds of cutters and big machines. Saw, some backyard mechanics lapping valves again, and I've got a lot to learn. There's a lot of content out there, and there's so much information about it. Different angles and minimum and maximum contact widths and angle widths and all these specifications and stuff. And what I took away was that probably the most important one is heat transfer, especially on the exhaust valves. And I may be wrong here, but this is just me talking through my thought process of trying to figure out something that new without any context. So apparently the exhaust valves, and makes sense, can get really hot, and that could be bad. And apparently the way that they transfer most of the heat is through the seat when they're in contact with the seal. And so I figured it is pretty important for that seal to be all the way around, and for there to be a good mating surface there so that heat can transfer into the head. So I decided to lap these again for like another hour, and I did manage to get all the seats pretty uniform. I'll show you here. Again, it's hard to tell, but like that one, not too bad. There's a little bit still up here, you can see towards the center part, but much better than it was. This one, not too bad. There's so I stopped when I started seeing, you can see there's a little bit of shininess there, but I stopped when I started seeing some scratches come into that, so that it's more even than it was. It's not a perfect valve job for sure, but I feel a little better about it. Probably number 6 I had the most trouble with. You can see there's still, at the right angle, there's still some right here, but I do have contact on either side. What happened, and this is what you don't want to happen, and I'm not sure how this affects it, but you can probably even see it went concave a little bit on me, so now it's not a completely flat surface. But I think it's going to seat enough and settle in that it won't, the valves won't get destroyed, and that's my main thing. I don't care if it ends up running rough later on, as long as it just runs a little bit. The other thing that happened is I did this transition here. I believe that's the 30-degree angle or something. Anyway, this transition right here, there's a little bit almost of like undercutting going on right there. It's not like on the intake valves where that surface is still a nice sharp angle there. This one you can kind of see that little shadow there, and you can feel it slightly with your finger. So I'm sure that's going to affect airflow and whatever, but my main thing is it safe for the engine, because I don't want to blow anything up. So anyway, that's what I did, and I don't know if it's right, but that's what Dennis does. But at least I have some reasoning behind it, so I feel better about it. Maybe that speaks more to my OCD than anything else, but I'm going to put this back together when I get the parts, and I'm fairly happy with how it came out, considering I didn't have any tools, I didn't pay for anything. Well, we'll find out. So hey, if this truck ends up running for a little while, this will be some good material here, because a lot of people like to do things the exact right way, and of course there's a lot of information about how to do things the right way. There's less information out there about doing things the wrong way. Not that this is the wrong way, necessarily, but this is just not the accepted practice you know. I think this video will be good to put out there. What happens when you put an engine back together and the valves look like this? So we're gonna find out. We'll see. All right, I'm gonna wrap it up. Next videos are gonna be me assembling this thing. I've got some cleanup work to do. I'm not gonna film that, cleaning up the gasket on the block. And then, of course, whether the actual truck runs or not, we're all gonna find out. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. So yeah. So I don't know.